Hi. Hi. Hi, my name is Damian. I want to talk about my identity as a queer, unlabeled person and unlabeled like sexuality wise because I use many gender labels for myself. Like I'm trans, I'm a man, I'm I don't have gender, that the list goes on. Uh but you know, I feel like in my experience being on the in the online queer community for years at this point, like I feel there's not much emphasis on, well, not emphasis, but not much discussion on people not using labels and people um unlabeled experiences. And I want to, share my reasons for me to not be labeled like sexuality wise, because I feel it can be important for maybe a person that can benefit from not using labels in any shape or form. I feel people should talk more about why someone would not want to use a label, because everything is centered around labels in the queer community, in the general queer community. It's the gay community, it's the lesbian community, the butch community, the trans community, and the list goes on. It's never like yeah, there's the queer community, but what about people who don't use the label queer? Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting the how to treat people not being labeled, and I want to talk about it. First, my experience. Quick summary. I like men. I like women. I would consider most myself T4T, mostly. At least in my way of like I don't right now I feel like an hypocrite when I say I'm T4T because I'm dating a cis person, or at least from what I know, I'm dating a cis person. I'm not going to describe the gender of my partner right now, but you get it. I'm mostly in a pretty and not in a not so T4T relationship. But even like that, I would like to go T4T at some point. And that's the only label I use for my sexuality, to be honest. But I don't. I feel that's more of a philosophy of life label. I feel more safe in general. Like for example, platonic T4T relationships. I feel safer, and the list goes on. But yeah, what I was saying. Well, yeah, I that's how my sexuality works, and for a long time I used many labels for my sexuality. Like I used at the beginning before coming out as trans, I was like a lesbian. Everyone knew. Well, not everyone. My parents didn't knew I was a lesbian, but my friends knew I like women, and I don't know. It was pretty predictable, to be honest. Like I was pretty much a queer kid from the beginning, and I know the first person I came out with, they said like, "Oh yeah, I knew," but I'm not a lesbian. The thing is that I also use like omnisexual for a long time. I used to call myself pansexual at some point. Um, I used to also call myself gay. And I the list goes on. For some quite some time, I said like I'm questioning my sexuality because it was true. I was questioning my sexuality. And I even feel I'm questioning my sexuality right now, not because I want to use the label at some point, but because I feel everyone is discovering sexuality stuff about themselves all the time. And I'm still discovering sexuality stuff about myself every moment. And I don't feel like I should label them. That's the point of not using a label for me. I feel there's a lot of nuance and experiences that are hidden when you use a label. If I use bi label or pan label, a lot of people, when I describe my sexuality, they say, "Oh, you're pan," and I say like, I don't know, because I'm not, especially if they are cishet. I don't want to describe my sexuality to a cishet person in the middle of a conversation. But even if I use the word pan to describe myself, I feel there's much more nuance in my sexuality, because even though I don't feel a preference for dating men, women, non-binary people, I feel at the same time I have different ways of being attracted to a cis woman, to a trans man, to a trans woman, to a cis guy, to a non-binary person, to everyone. Like, I have a different idea of having a relationship with a cis man than my idea of having not idea, but of my experience dating right now my partner that it's not a cis man. Like, and I feel that's normal, but I don't feel comfortable like reducing my sexuality in, I'm pan, I don't care about your gender when I date you, because yes, I don't care about gender, but there's much more nuances about it. It's not only I don't care about gender, it's that I can date anyone and I don't feel like I want more a relationship more than the other, but I don't feel all the relationships are the same for me. And I feel that's okay. I feel I should be allowed to just, if someone asks me, "Are you a lesbian?" Because a lot of people ask me, "Are you a lesbian?" If I don't, if I just, I feel I'm allowed to just say, "Well, I like women, but I also like men, and I also like non-binary people." I feel I should be allowed to say that without someone interrupting me and saying, "Oh, you're pan." Like, I'm sorry, but don't impose labels on people. Like, I know that's not like 100% what imposing a label looks like, but it feels like that, especially when you're unlabeled and you liked being not labeled, when you enjoy the experience of not describing your sexuality. I feel it's weird, it feels uncomfortable when someone says, "Oh, well, you're bi." Like, I'm not. I'm not. The same with my relationship. My relationship is not a lesbian relationship because I'm a man, first of all, but also it's not a hetero. No, it's not a heterosexual relationship. I'm genderless. I feel weird using the word heterosexual to describe my relationship because it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like that. And I feel there's nuance in that relationship. And I feel I should be allowed to say there's nuance in it and not reduce it to a label. And I'm not saying that if you use a label, you're like, I'm not saying that your sexuality is simple if you use a label. I'm totally aware and I totally support the use of labels. I don't feel it's bad to use labels. I use labels a lot of gender labels. Well, not a lot, but many gender labels. But at the same time, I feel we should allowed more queer people to just say they are unlabeled, because especially cishet people, if a cishet person knows you're queer, they want to know what type of queer you are. You know what queer you are? Sorry, but what queer you are? Can I know? And I don't know why I should tell people what type of queer I am. I find a lot of joy, actually, in people not knowing what type of queer I am, sexuality wise. Because, people know I'm a trans man. But why is it so hard to come to terms with someone being unlabeled? I don't know. I find it weird. And I'm not saying, I'm not accusing queer people. Like most queer people I know, especially even online, I feel they usually are like okay with me not using labels. But I feel like people, when they hear me not, don't use labels, they usually think, shut up, they usually think I'm like in negation of my queerness. And no, I'm not. A queer person can be unlabeled. Unlabeled can be really queer. Not using a label, not conforming to a label, it's pretty queer in my opinion. And I don't know why that's hard to to realize. And yeah, I feel that's how I feel. I don't know. I think that's the end of the video. Yeah. If you're unlabeled, tell me your experiences. I'm pretty interested in meeting fellow unlabeled people. But yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Bye.